Hello, it's CJ Miller. Happy Friday the 13th. So I'm here in my kitchen. I have just taken a chicken off of the rotisserie. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk how using a small serrated knife, uh, I just cut a section of this chicken out and I get a leg quarter, breast. It's really, really great. Uh, a well-cooked chicken sections very well, and I wanted to display that. Now I want to let you know something else. So I'm across the Red River from Bossier City, Louisiana, in my hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, downtown. I do want to invite you to come check us out. Now I'm going to plate this up with some other goodies. It's a Friday the 13th feast. Hang on. Okay, so there's actually no way I'm going to eat all of this at one setting, but oh, I'm going to have to check that. Is the expression one setting, as if this is a setting, a plate setting, or is it sitting? I think it's sitting. I think it's properly sitting because it's in me sitting in one sitting. It's kind of like when you read a short story, you should be able to read it in one sitting. I don't know. I'll fact check that and make sure I'm okay with it, but I think it's one sitting. I'm not going to eat all this in one sitting, but I have some slices of ham that I put in the air fryer. First, I did the rotisserie chicken. Then I did the ham, and as I did the ham on the air fryer setting of my device, I put the ribs that were wrapped in foil, and they were leftover ribs, but I had them in foil and I put them in the bottom of the air fryer setting and did the air fryer ham and pork ribs at the same time. So I've got these wonderful pork spare rib type things going on with the ham here and this wonderful chicken. So I'm about to tear into all this carnivorous goodness. And I'm going to begin my Friday the 13th movie marathon because here in October, we're having a Friday the 13th. It's great. I love it. It's also the eve of a solar eclipse. And we'll get here in my area, we'll get about 75% of the eclipse. And that's okay. In a few months, we're going to have a more total eclipse. And I actually have plans to go with friends to a little bit further in East Texas, like right at the apex of where that solar eclipse is going to be in the southern part of North America. So that's cool. Yeah, so I'm going to get after my dinner. What I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about my thoughts and my fun for Friday the 13th. I love these movies. I love the day. And my just my love of slasher movies began with Friday the 13th. I was with my sister and my family, and we went to visit my older brother, my father's son from a previous marriage. And of course, he was much older, about 9-10 years. Like I was about 9 years old, and I think he had just turned 18. That's the age difference between us. So we didn't really get to know each other while he was still with us. But, we've seen each other, but we didn't have that same bond that my sister and I have. But, we went to a double feature at a drive-in theater. And we saw Friday the 13th, Part 1 and Part 2. So I'm going to at least do those tonight. And then I'll try to squeeze in a Part 3 tonight because, boy, I sure do. That was like shortly after Part 1 and Part 2 and at a double feature. So they were already cranking out a Part 3. And it was in the big 3D renaissance in the early 1980s. And Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D. It was the tagline, is how they sold it in theaters. And it was biggest, one of the biggest box office earners that year. You know, as I've read, because I actually, and the reason my source on this, and I forget the name of the book, but you probably can find it. It's at the downtown library. When they finish, I'll go back and check it out. They've done some reconstruction over the last year or so at our downtown library, just a few blocks away from me. So I've not really been able to get, my hands on books like I want to. It's probably why I've been ordering more paperback books more than usual. But I once read a book about the history of 3D cinema, and it talked a lot about. And this was before it was published in the late 1980s or the early 1990s. When I got a hold of it, the new millennium had just started. You know what I mean? Like, so when I read it around 2002, 2003, somewhere around there. Maybe there was the occasional 3D movie, but for a while, it's like the 3D format had gone away. And so they'd done a book that talked about the history of 3D cinema. And that's where I get my source from, that novel. Not that novel, but that paperback book that they had about Friday the 13th, Part 3 in Super 3D being like the big box office earner for that year, Because that year, everything was 3D. And I think the other one might have been Poltergeist. The thing about Poltergeist, I was so funny. It was weird because it came to the movie theater in Mall St. Vincent. There used to be a movie theater there. And I want to say it was 1982. I don't know. But it came out. But nobody could even pronounce the name of the movie in my town in Shreveport back then. This was before the internet, and no one really talked about Poltergeist. I think no one really knew that word. So there was a sort of a phenomenon going on in movies around, and I think it was brought on by the Amityville Horror. Because then we had the Amityville 2, there was the movie The Entity, and Poltergeist was a little bit on the tamer side of things, except for that final scene. However, they got skeletons coming out of the ground and the not quite filled in swimming pool, all that stuff. However, they got that past to do a PG-13, I do not know. Because that was not that was scary as hell, and I was about 9 or 10 years old when I saw it. I don't know, but we saw that movie, and then but what happened was it was there in theaters. Poltergeist seemed like for weeks, and then it just went away. It wasn't there, so we never got around to it. But we didn't know what the hell it was anyway, so it's not like whatever. It's like, okay, we're about as uninterested in this as could possibly be. And then after about a month or so, it came back to the theater, the same theater, and it was there for a long time. So I think what it is what happened. It was in theaters and it wasn't getting traction, but once it really started to pick up, it came back to the theater and got released again, and it was amazing. And this wasn't like a coming soon, you know what I mean? So it was out. And then it got pulled out of the theater, and then it got brought back to the theater, and it was all this within a few months. So, yeah, it was amazing. I don't know what was going on, but it was awesome. What was I talking about? Oh, Friday the 13th. So, yeah, my love of horror movies, and then. Of course, there's Phantasm, The Fog, Prom Night, Happy Birthday to Me, Hell Night, which was a wonderful movie that's it's got a solid R rating now. And aside from one beheading, it was a quick clip of a beheading, I don't necessarily think anything in that movie was particularly worthy of an R rating, although it was eerie as hell. But it's probably something you could probably do it with your uh, teens. A PG-13 would be the rating it would probably get today. Because it's not real. It's not a bloody movie. It's not a gory movie. It's not even. There's no. Yeah. Um, so it's all right. But yeah, a lot of those movies that got an R rating back in the day would probably get a PG-13 today, because we only had three ratings: G, uh, ratings that theaters would show, family theaters or whatever. We had G, and then we had PG, and then we had uh, R, and then of course, in the adult cinemas, you could get an X-rated movie, but yeah, whatever. Um, uh, which honestly, some of those earlier, even though they were pornographic, I've seen some of them, and some of them are really artistic, and there is some artistic value and meaning, especially in the 70s of awareness and just a new burgeoning awarenesses and a reformation of ideas or whatever. But yeah, today I don't think there's anything of the sort today. It's just, hey, whatever. Okay, but back to what I want to talk about: this dinner and me fixing to watch Friday the 13th, part one, part two, and part three. That's the trilogy thing for me. What I remember, we have Pamela Voorhees popping up to be the surprise in Friday the 13th, part one. Uh, Adrienne King did that movie, and then she came back in part two. And of course, we got Kevin Bacon in part one also. Uh, Notable mentions for his and one of the greatest kills actually in the movie. And then we get to part two, and Adrienne King comes back but she really doesn't want to be in the movie all that much. And then a little bit of a cameo appearance by Betsy Palmer, but mostly reusing the clips from the first movie in the prologue. But we quickly move into Amy Steele and Jeff Fury, who's been in a few things. And there, if you look hard enough, you'll see a couple of honorable mentions in part two, other than Amy Steele, especially the assistant camp director, the red-haired guy. I forget his name, but yeah, he was in some teen films. Like he was in the movie Once Bitten. God, I'm so forgetting his name. A red-haired little Jewish guy, tall, thin, whatever. He was the one in Friday the 13th Part 2 that when Paul and Jenny were talking about Jason, he could be, what about it? And he's the one that decides to stay. So I always thought they should have brought his character back, because he didn't go back to camp and get slaughtered. He stayed in town, went to an after-hours bar or something like that. Anyway, then we get to part 3. And what the actress's name? Dina Merrill. I know she did a lot of TV. She did some Different Strokes. She did Facts of Life, and yeah, she was the sole survivor of Friday the 13th Part 3. You see, back in the day, all the way through the late 60s, all the way up until into the 2000s, your final girl was called Sole Survivor. I don't even think we started calling the Sole Survivor a final girl maybe until Scream, and then both terms were used there. It kind of became, but it was your sole survivor, although sometimes your sole survivor was not a sole survivor. Sometimes the heroine was able to save the boyfriend, and so she got to be the hero, and then sometimes, as in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, your sole survivor was a boy. So, or a male or a man or whatever. So uh, so final girl would not be. I guess you could be like final girl, hey final girl, but really, no, that's not. No, I'm sorry. It's just, I'm ashamed of myself for saying that. But I'm not ashamed that I just ate a piece of this ham. Okay. There's about 21, 22 of you out there that subscribe. If you like horror movies, I'd love to hear about your horror movies, the ones that you like. Um, oh, if I need a break, I do have Chucky. The second episode of season 3, Chucky, is out. I'll probably save that for after the marathon, but so don't spoil it for me. Okay. I love you guys, for real. Peace, love, and light. Good night.